Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of season 2 with Viive Values. Now I'm going to go ahead and get our guest and we are going to jump right in. Hope everyone's having a good day. It is much colder here today than it was before. Consider it a win after that crazy, damp, dark winter we had last year. So anyways, really excited for today's chat. Oh, wait, I think we've got her. Hello.
Love to surround. Don't you see my kitchen?
It was very nice and clean looking, so good job. Hey Cindy, how are you?
I'm great, Mallory. How are you?
Good. I'm so glad that you're here today. We haven't chatted in so long, and I'm excited for you to share your wisdom and knowledge with our audience today.
I'm happy to be here. And also, it's really nice when I see that a lot of your trusted partners are people in my own network as well. So nice to know we're linking arms with a lot of the same great people.
Exactly. I could not agree more. Well, let me just introduce you to everybody. So this is Cindy Marques. I said that right? Yeah? I try to remember that from years ago. Cindy Marques is a certified financial planner and director of education at Open Access, a group retirement services firm, as well, because that's not enough, as the owner of Make Sense, as in CENTS, a financial planning company geared towards supporting the millennial demographic in Canada. Cindy helps her clients take control of their finances, overcome money stress, pay off debt, and achieve financial freedom. Isn't that what we all want? She believes that financial literacy is the ultimate tool for building wealth, and she is on a personal mission to educate and empower her peers with the essential skills for financial success. I need me some of those skills, Cindy.
Very warm introduction. Thank you, Mallory.
Amazing. Well, let's just dive right in here. So November is 2 really important months, at least to me. It's Make a Will month, which we've had some content out about that, but it's also Financial Literacy Month. Now, from your perspective, what's the state of our overall financial literacy here in Canada? And also, on average, are people actually equipped with the knowledge and skills they need to be financially empowered?
Yeah, that's an important question. It's a loaded question. So I don't want to speak with broad strokes and say this is in fact the case for all of Canada. I'll speak from my experience and the individuals that I work with. And that's two very different demographics. With my employment with Open Access, that's primarily boomers.
Mm-hmm.
So right now they're, I would say 60 to 70, I believe is the age range. So about to enter retirement or just entered retirement. And I find that this cohort has done their due diligence because, I mean, retirement's upon them. It's this enormous moment in your life where you choose to be unemployed for many decades. And so I find that they are taking action to learn concepts. However, the one thing I'm still finding is lacking is the understanding of the Canadian federal pensions, the OAS. And so they're entering retirement, they're about to, thinking that there'd be a lot more money available to them than they thought in the actual case. But luckily with this demographic, they were more easily able to get into the real estate market decades ago, and where there's gaps, they're able to fill it with equity there. But it was a personal practice. I'm working with my own demographic, millennials. And I find that there is a bit more lacking in literacy. Not that there isn't interest. I find that millennials are very eager to improve themselves and do better, see what can be improved and try to take action on that. But it's kind of a lot of, throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what's still. Maybe they are, investing in things like TFSAs and RSPs, but not really understanding how those accounts work, the nuances, the restrictions, etc. They just know that these are things I'm supposed to do, but it's a little bit misguided. But that's sort of like best case scenario. Oftentimes, I'm finding with our demographic, there is really a return to the fundamentals, looking to talk and be more empowered with things like budgeting, and cash flow management, debt management, etc. So a lot of problems there, just not really knowing where your money is going and carrying a lot of shame, feeling like, well, this is my fault for not knowing all the jargon better. When really a lot of it can be solved by just paying attention to your numbers. But that's my experience with these demographics.
And I think it really rings true in a lot of ways. I actually just had a personal experience where in my marriage, in my household, I don't pay the bills at all. I don't manage any of the money. And that was just a divide that we were very comfortable with because my husband enjoys it and I have no interest. So that just worked well for us. But I run a business. And so all of a sudden I had to become invested in what's going on in the business from a business perspective and from a money perspective, something I just had like no skill set in. And I've done well the past few years, but I've been having a struggle recently. And I just admitted that to my husband. Like, I feel like I'm missing something, that I'm just constantly behind from a financial perspective and I don't understand why. And just by adding some very simple things in, we use an app called You Need a Budget in our family. And so I started a business one. It is like in weeks has drastically changed my outlook just because I admitted ignorance, which is totally fair. You can't know what you don't know. And then listened to him patiently when he explained things to me, which is also important. But then also like went and actually applied what he was talking about and took the onus on. And I think that that's for a lot of millennials is we just had things managed for us, or we just slipped in and did what our parents did. But now we're wanting to feel independent, and like you need to take the time and admit what you don't know and dive into it.
Yeah, and to your point there, even just the fact that you created a budget and it was already kind of a load off, I think, the concept of literacy goes beyond just understanding jargon. Hey, what does RRSP stand for?
Yeah.
And how does this work? That's very technical, but I think literacy extends to just being able to know what's happening with your money, not
Yes.
necessarily knowing exactly what to do with your money and having all the right answers, but what is happening with your money and having your eyes on that. I think that's already a great relief to be able to see how your money is
Mhm.
working. So great that you started a
Yeah.
budget and you're tracking expenses.
No, and I was doing it in different ways that I think just never worked for me. And then my husband was like, you should try using what we use at home and see if it's helpful. And it did. It just gave me for me, the right visual to be able to understand it. And I think that's also the thing, is that not every system is going to work for every person. We all learn differently, and it's finding the system that works best for you. And then you start to feel empowered in that process.
Yeah, I use a good old spreadsheet. I like
Nice.
to keep myself accountable. With every single penny I spend, I need to type it out and feel the pain of my actions. No hiding.
I love that. I love that. And that works for you. And that's great. And I mean, I still know people my age that do what I remember a lot of like boomer like couples doing, the old like envelope trick, right? Which is really what You Need a Budget is, actually, just like on an app. But like, yeah, like this idea that you take out this money and here it is in envelopes, so you can only spend this much. And I mean, if it works, then like go for it, right? Just so long as you're feeling empowered and in control of the money that you have.
That's the key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now money stress is so common in our North American society. A lot of us just feel instantly overwhelmed by even thinking about the current state of our bank account, never mind putting money away to be used 40 plus years from now when we are in our active aging years. So is money stress something you see a lot in your practice? And if so, where do you think that that's coming from?
I definitely see a lot of it and I can resonate. I get it. I've been there and still, ebb and flow out of those periods of stress. But here I can actually pull some stats for you. So
Nice.
FP Canada, which is my regulating body as a certified financial planner, every year they release a survey across Canada and they release a report, the Financial Stress Index.
Okay.
So I have some key numbers here to speak to what you're saying. And in fact, 44% of Canadians reported that money is their primary stressor above relationships, above health, above work. Those were sitting at 21%, 16%, and 16% respectively. But
Hmm.
that was the one. Money is right at the top. And they also noted in the survey that, external factors, things like grocery prices, inflation, housing costs, these are the top things that were contributing to that stress there. And half of Canadians reported that they've lost sleep over
Hmm.
money. And in this report too, because I work with millennials, it also highlights the fact that younger Canadians are feeling this more drastically,
Yeah.
to the point where they've reported it's causing things like anxiety, depression, and other mental health issues. So obviously, money is weighing heavily on our minds. I'm seeing
Mhm.
that with my own clients as well. I've been there too, especially, when the pandemic hit and things
Yeah.
felt pretty bleak. Um, but this weighs heavily, and there are things that can be done. you already alluded to it earlier. It starts kind of with just having your eyeballs on where your money is
Mm-hmm.
going, whether the situation is bleak or
Yeah.
optimistic. The point is you can see what's happening and you can diagnose the problem and then proactively do something about it. Are you feeling stressed because you're carrying so much debt? Well, why is that stressing you out? Is it because you have the debt and can't pay it off, or because the debt is growing?
Right.
And what is that? Like, what's causing it to grow?
Mm-hmm.
So again, just being able to see where your money is going and what can be done there can help ease the burden a lot. But to your original question, yes, money stress is very prevalent, and in fact, statistically true that it is one of the top
Mm-hmm.
stressors for people.
And I definitely feel like when you take the time to not just go, oh, I have $5,000 in my bank account so I can go spend it, but you take the time to actually understand how you should be spending it and like what you have coming up, like you again just have insight in what your day-to-day, month-to-month life is. You start realizing that you kind of have more money than you think. It's just that you've been spending it without thought. And once you start thinking about things, not necessarily being frugal or like not ever doing anything fun, just like putting thought into it, right? The same thing happens when you're like, I'm going to think about how much sugar I'm eating this month. And every time you pick up that piece of chocolate, you go, I am thinking about the fact that I'm eating this and that it's not good for me in any way, right? Like just putting thought into it, I find for me, and I've seen even with some of my clients, like it just makes it easier. They go, oh, I want to be able to save for a trip, but look at how much money I'm spending on Starbucks. Just they don't even think about it because they have the money to spend on Starbucks. So great. Okay, go spend it. But then you don't have that money to spend on other things. A lot of times it's just, I find as simple as that, just having like that aha moment. And then you can make whatever choice is right for you. You don't have to save for that trip or have to save for retirement, although please do. You can make that conscious choice as opposed to just a haphazard tap of your phone, right? As you're walking past.
Yeah, and not to throw, coffee under the bus here, because the latte factor gets thrown around a lot. Like, oh, your problem is that you buy lattes and that's why you can't afford a house.
Yeah.
I mean, it's part of the problem, but at the end of the day, and you mentioned it too with like a budget, it shouldn't be restrictive.
Mm-hmm.
It's a matter of doing the things that you want to do, the things that are important to you. And that could be, the joy you get from getting those daily lattes. Hey,
That's
if that's
great.
your rich life,
Do it.
fantastic.
Yeah.
But the key of the budget is to be able to do all of those
Mm-hmm.
things within your
Yeah.
means, so that you're not taking on debt to do so, and that you actually are consciously choosing to, yes, I do want to buy these lattes. That makes me feel great. And I'm making that
Yeah.
choice. And one thing I always, going back to your comments about just being conscious and thinking about your spending, is thinking about the time it takes you to earn the money that you're about to spend on the thing or the
Yeah.
experience or whatever it is. Because unless you're so fortunate as to be endowed with an inheritance or a trust fund, we have to spend time earning our dollars.
Yes.
So when you're filling up your online carts and you see that final number on the checkout, think to yourself, how long does it take you to earn that amount of money? And then that's a moment of reckoning where either you're like, yeah, no, I want this. This feels good. I feel validated. Sure, it takes me a day to earn that money, but yes, this is meaningful to me. I'll buy it. Or you have that moment where you're like, no, this is silly.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. It's just being thoughtful again and having a little moment of reckoning with
Exactly.
yourself.
Yeah. Now, how do you help your clients work through this money stress that obviously so many millennials are going through right now? And also then how do you empower them to feel financially independent?
And to not sound like a broken record, but it just very much is the case.
Mhm.
Truly, it boils down to cash flow planning is where I start with all of my clients. Even when they come to me with more, advanced retirement planning or tax planning needs, before we can implement anything, I'm like, well, we need to know if this fits. It's all well and
Yeah.
good to come up with this plan and be like, all you need to do is save X dollars a month and ta-da, there's your answer. But is that feasible? Is it
Mm-hmm.
reasonable
Mm-hmm.
to put it out there and wipe your hands? Let's actually see the numbers and how it fits. So, to relieve stress and to take control, you really do need to create some semblance of a budget. And again, a budget doesn't mean being restrictive and cutting out the spice of life and all the things you love. It's really just being able to allocate your money and give it direction, give it a purpose, assign it a goal, and see that it fits,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to pivot and adjust when you thought that I can go on this trip and I just need to save $500 a month. No problem. Great. You're halfway there. You figured
Yeah.
out what it's, but can you do
Mhm.
it? And now plugging that in and adjusting for those months where maybe I can't this month or that, but the point is you've made a plan and you're seeing it, from a step back, bird's eye view. A year at a glance works great for those longer term goals, but that's really where I start with my clients is the cash flow planning. And right off the bat, that tends to relieve a lot of stress and already make them feel in control. To your
Mhm.
point, so I didn't realize I had so much potential. I was just kind of
Yeah.
blindly throwing money around, or I have all this debt and I was here just thinking I would never be free of
Mhm.
it. But you just laid out that I can do this by fall. And by seeing it laid out in numbers, they're more inclined to
Yeah.
stick with it at that point. Verbally saying that you can do this, here's what it takes is one thing. But then to actually crunch the numbers, spell it out, and show them the roadmap via cash flow plan, they're like, oh, that's incredible. That makes me feel super empowered. I'm like very inspired to stick to this now. So I just cannot stress enough how far that will go for Canadians to just track your expenses and try to lay out some semblance of a budget. You don't have to be, the manual spreadsheet kind of person. You don't
Mhm.
have to write it down on paper. Even if you just do it once, so you can see for yourself what you're capable of, what your numbers are capable of. That
Mhm.
goes a really long way.
Yeah. I mean, it makes me think of like reward charts that you see in schools or you even do at home with your own kids. Like they get stickers when they do things. And it then also makes me think of like fundraising goals when they give you a visual representation of how much money they've made to like fill up the like thermometer thing, right? Like that's something that you can do for yourself. Why? There's a lot of times when I'm raising my daughter where I go, why did I release this concept? I mean, it's obviously been brought down, not down, but you know what I mean? It's kid friendly right now, but why is this concept not also still being used in my life as a almost 38-year-old? Like it can still be used in this way. And like having a reward based system works on kids, why would it not work on adults? So if you can provide yourself with that visual representation of I did this month, I saved this much money this month, and reward yourself with a sticker or whatever else you want to, that like helps you. Like I think visual representations can support a lot of people regardless of how they in particular learn, because then you just see it and you know that got done or that didn't get done this month and here's why it didn't get done, and that can be just so helpful.
Yeah, and honestly, accountability groups go a long
Mm-hmm.
way. I know myself, I've been on and off this fitness train for quite some time, and I realize what works for me is when I have a gym buddy or when I'm
Yeah.
doing group classes, something where there's other people
Mm-hmm.
around. I can see them huffing and puffing, like, okay, we're all in this
Yeah.
together. Like, I know I'm tired, but you're tired, and we're all here. And that's motivating for me to keep with it and work hard.
Yeah.
Likewise with finances, I think more people are open to the idea of like, oh yeah, I understand the idea of a gym buddy. You're right, that does work.
Mm-hmm.
Likewise with finances, we should just be able to normalize speaking about that with each other. And in fact, funny enough, that is this year's financial literacy month theme
Oh,
is talking about money.
amazing.
Money on your mind, talk about it is what they phrased it from FPAC.
Okay.
But honestly, it goes a really long way. And I've been starting to implement this with some of my personal clients, where it's just, those who feel like they're often acting on a whim to their impulses. Just message me when you feel like I just did this thing. And sometimes saying it out loud is like, okay, I'm going to return
Yeah.
it. I already closed the laptop. I didn't hit checkout on the carts. It's like the moment you're doing something that you feel like, am I going to do this as fast as possible so I can't convince myself not
Yeah.
to? Or if I take a moment to tell someone about it or even celebrate the wins, not just, stop yourself from spending, but like message someone like, I just contributed to my RSP for the first time. And like, that makes me feel great.
Yeah.
Honestly, the conversations should be more normalized.
I completely agree. I think it's something that I think it's interesting. I had a conversation with a friend the other day about talking about money and like when you have a friend group and there's different, first of all, different financial priorities, which is fine, but also just different tax brackets in terms of what people are earning and how do you talk about money with each other. And sometimes talking about money isn't talking about money. It's like, well, for instance, my husband and I just booked a trip, a 2-week trip to Europe this summer with our daughter. We're going to 3 different countries. But when I talk about that to someone, that tells someone how much money I have in a way to be able to do that. And I bring that up with people and they always go, wow, that's so cool. And then sometimes you'll see that like look on their face where they go, oh, like that's what we're talking about here. And then they'll mention their trip or something they plan to go do that they might deem, because I think any family trip is awesome, but they might deem less than what I've described. And then you see that discomfort happen. And I'm like, look, at the end of the day, any level of wealth you have, how you choose to spend your money, just have that insight, make those choices very consciously. And can we find a way to just talk about that openly with each other? I wonder, I feel like money in some ways is more contentious or uncomfortable a topic than aging and end of life. I wonder why. I'm sure there's some big historical reason behind why that is. Maybe it is because people feel like they don't want to brag about the money that they have, and they think that by talking about it, that's what they're doing. But I think you can start by just talking about it like with yourself, with your partner, like getting comfortable with that language. Just like I would say to someone talking about aging or end of life, get comfortable with yourself and then with your partner, if applicable, and then go out from there. Do you meet with a professional like you or like me to get more used to talking about your money and your surroundings and whatnot, and then get more comfortable going outside of the circle each time? But I love that slogan that they have for this month. I'm definitely going to include it because that makes sense to me. We need to be talking about things. That's how we become desensitized to the discomfort around topics, is just by talking about it over and over.
You brought up something really good when you talked about, discussing trips with your friends and how maybe they can be an indicator of your tax bracket or your wealth. But my argument after that would be that, richness and wealth are two different things.
Yep.
And richness is something that we can see where, okay, I have the means to buy this stuff or
Right.
go on that trip. Either the income or the access to credit to do these things. So those are things that can be externally displayed. And we see them, we compare ourselves to that. The richness, the means to do stuff. But wealth is quiet. Wealth is, those bank accounts filling up, those investment accounts being deposited into. And, you look at some examples of very wealthy individuals like Warren Buffett, who visually don't look rich, quote unquote, but they have all this wealth. Right. So it's no wonder that we don't have any, role models to easily look to for wealth. It's because it's not easily displayed. It's the stuff that gets accumulated in the background and gives you the flexibility to live life on your own terms and do what you want. But again, that takes discretion to be mindful of how you spend your money and choose to set things aside for future you versus present you. Present you living hard is very much that display of richness. Right. And that's what we always see. And that's why we'll knock ourselves down a peg sometimes when you're like, you went to Greece again? And here I haven't taken a trip in forever. But I'm downgrading the fact that, I've been contributing to my RSPs regularly. And now I'm thinking that I'm not doing enough or I'm not doing as well as you because I'm not taking the trips, displaying richness. But meanwhile, I am quietly building wealth. Yeah. So I wanted to put that out there. Wealth is silent, and we don't have very clear indicators of that or role models to look up to because all we see is richness, not wealth per se.
That's a good designation. And I think we probably start to see that wealth when we see people in their more active aging years, when we see what they have accessible to them financially to support them through that process. That's when we'll start to see that wealth because they had the forethought to save for that time of life ahead of time. And then we start to see that come out. I was just at probably the most luxurious retirement home I've ever been at recently, and just walked in and was like, how, in my head, I thought, how rich are these people? And then went about like just being there. It was wonderful. Like in my head, I'm like, this is a goal. Like, this is incredible. But you're right. It wasn't that they were rich. It's that they had acquired so much wealth throughout their life. And that wealth, albeit silent at that point in time, was not silent right then because they had lived their life in a particular way. And now they were able to continue living their life in a particular way without feeling like they had to take steps back because they didn't have that wealth to live through those active aging years.
Yeah, and so it's all about finding the balance to have my Starbucks today, and that's my rich wealth. My rich life while still accumulating wealth. To have Starbucks in abundance in retirement too, while on the beach.
Right? Oh my God, I love all of that. Let's do it. So, if you had to pick your number one piece of financial advice to give our audience, which I'm sure you have like 1,000, but if you could just do one that you're like, bottom line, this, what would it be?
Um, Honestly, it's to figure out what the price tag to your life is. So
Mm,
there's one thing, the cost of your life, and then the cost of your lifestyle. And it's funny because I actually see one of my colleagues watching this live right now, so he's heard me say this in abundance. But I can't stress it enough. Honestly, I don't think a lot of people are very aware of what that minimum price tag to their life is.
mhm.
All the non-negotiables, your housing,
Yeah.
groceries, the minimum, transportation, childcare, whatever, the bills, the ongoing stuff, the stuff you can't negotiate with, where whatever it is you earn in an income, you have to sort of subtract that price tag from that because that money's not yours to keep. So
No.
just like there's deductions on your pay stub at source, you should consider the cost of your life
Hmm.
another at source deduction because that money's not yours to keep.
Yeah.
How much does that amount to? And when, crap hits the fan, do you know how much you need to outlay to
Hmm.
support yourself? And once you have an idea of what your life costs, then that'll tell you what you have left for your lifestyle.
Yeah.
And again, that's a moment of reckoning
Mm.
where I think a lot of the time, especially my clients as millennials, they carry a lot of shame and guilt about like, you see, the problem is I'm just not good at money. I don't understand the jargon, all these acronyms. That's the problem here. That's why I feel out of control. When really is like, okay, yes, we can learn more,
Hmm.
but is it actually maybe that your life costs way too much? And in fact, there's really not much left for you to work
Right.
with to have the salary that you want. And so you feel deprived and you're labeling it, oh, it's because I'm the problem. I don't know enough.
Hmm.
The problem is, you're spending 60% of your income on rent
Yeah.
or mortgage or whatever it may be. And these are tough things, but that number is so important because if you feel like it's eating up way too much of your income,
Mm.
that's the moment of reckoning where maybe you need to decide, okay, is this busy city the place I want to
Yeah.
live if it means I have no money left to live in it the way I want to? Whereas, if I make some other changes, live elsewhere, maybe it's my income is the problem. I need to if you're self-employed, set my goals higher or, ask for a raise once and for
Hmm.
all. These are important indicators for you at this point. So my one piece of advice to summarize is what is the basic price tag to your life? And what does that leave you for your
Hmm.
life?
That's great. My husband uses two different terms, but I'm going to teach him life versus lifestyle. But something that I know we do that at first I was like, no, that's annoying. It should be under lifestyle. This was like many, many years ago before I started Viive. But beyond like paying down any debts, which we consider life, we also put all the money that we intend to contribute to investments under life, not under lifestyle.
Yeah,
And then it's like a bill,
yeah.
right? Like it helps because our financial planner automatically withdraws it, so it's just gone. But yeah, like it's a bill to us that money is going into those accounts. So in my head, when I'm planning a trip to Greece, that money doesn't exist at all. It's not even an option. So that I know was really helpful for us. But I like the lifestyle. They're nicer words than what he uses, so I might have him change that.
I mean, you took the words out of my mouth because when I give presentations about budgeting, that is always what I said, where you have to treat your savings like a
Oh yeah,
non-negotiable bill because future Cindy wants to
yeah,
retire and present Cindy has to foot the bill. No one else can pay
yeah.
for it. So as far as I'm concerned, if I'm dead set on that goal and it's important for me to have that trip to retire well, then I actually don't have a
Yeah,
choice but to pay the bill for it today.
exactly.
And I automate everything. So it really just becomes an at source deduction. Again,
Hmm.
my paycheck comes and bam, everything's taken out source from my paycheck and bam, immediately my contributions also leave my bank account
Yeah,
to whatever so savings contributions and what I have left is there for me to spend. But I immediately just get rid
yeah,
of that money on purpose automatically so I don't negotiate with it because it is a bill. And I do consider that part of like the price tag to my life because it's gotta happen. Whether I'm living in Toronto or a smaller town, I still want to retire.
yeah.
So that bill doesn't change.
Exactly. Exactly. So, any sort of final thoughts for people? Can you let us know people can reach you if they want to work with you?
Uh, yeah, you can reach me directly on this account at Dress to Invest or my website, cindymarquez.com. But I would say final thoughts here is alluding to the fact that, working with a professional goes a really long way. And I'm going to even circle back to that financial stress index survey where it was in fact reported anyone who's working with a financial planner, a financial professional, reported less stress, reported higher levels of optimism, generally said that their outlook was better and they were doing better. So whether you're working with Mallory for end of life care, setting up a will and everything that we don't like to think about but is so important, or you want to deal with it today, working with a financial professional like myself, it really does go a long way. And there's no judgment, just because, we weren't taught this in our school curriculum at the time. So very ashamed and feel bad about like, well, geez, like I'm almost 40 and why don't I know these things? That's my fault. And I'm just going to feel bad about it. And it's also hard to discern good advice from not so great advice from online influencers and the like. So, doing your own due diligence could also be its own hurdle and difficult to do. So working with a professional, someone is accredited and qualified, it's going to go a long way. There's no judgment there. This is what we do for a living. And it would help. And the stats show that it does help.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this was really great, Cindy. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your wisdom with our audience. And have a great rest of your financial literacy month.
Thank you, Mallory. And likewise, thank you for hosting me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. See you later. Bye, everyone.
Take care.